Hello, everyone. Welcome to the workshop, Transformative Dialogues in Complex Cases and Serious Harms. My name is Denise Lavallée, and I'm currently on ARJA's Board of Directors. Before I hand over the session to Paulo Moratelli, I would just like to let you know about a few logistics. So during the session, you will be able to submit questions by clicking the Q&A button below and typing in your question. You'll also be able to see which other questions are being asked, and you can choose to like them, to say that you'd like that question posed as well. So that way you will upvote it. And at the end of the presentation, for sure, we will reserve a short time for questions and answers. So you can keep writing them in. This session is being recorded and it will be available to view for up to 7 days after the conference. And we're asking that after the workshop, if you can click on the survey button in the description of the workshop, just to fill out a brief survey about the workshop, because that feedback is going to be sent to the presenters, but also help us inform workshops about conferences in the future. So thank you again for joining us. Enjoy the workshop and take it away, Paulo.
Hello, Denise. Hello, Reed. I assume that you can hear me now. My microphone is on, is okay? Okay, great. So thank you for having me here, for the invitation and for this introduction. We're planning to talk a little bit today about how we can use some practices, transformative practices, with complex cases and serious harms. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and for sure I will talk a little bit about what I call transformative dialogues or transformative circles, which is the main thing that I use. Is a method that I've developed in the past 10 years. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Well, let's go. I will share my screen with you, a PowerPoint presentation. I can give you to everyone that wants to have this presentation later. Okay. Well, the main thing for me when you talk about transformative dialogues in complex cases, in serious harms, is to talk about what really makes the difference. And what really makes the difference for us, it isn't the technique itself. It isn't how you do that or what you do. For example, you can run circles, peacemaking circles, you can run conferences, you can run victim offender dialogues or meetings, etc. It doesn't really matter to me which method, which practice do you choose to use. But what really matters is why you do that. So that's precisely the main thing in my work, is always question why I'm doing that, why those people are coming to me to help them to have a better understanding what is going on in their lives, and with the conflicts they're participating, or anything that they really need help to. I have to say is a little bit challenging for me to do this in English. My first language is Portuguese. I'll try to do my best. Please, if you don't understand something that I say, you can post that in the comments, and I'll try to explain a little bit better for you. Well, the first thing for me is to look back in what is really important for those people. So our role in this transformative processes is to help people to find a sense of meaning of what's happening in their lives, help them find out what really matters, help them to identify what needs to change, what are their part in this change process, and help them to discover how to build and maintain healthy relationships. Most of the things that I'll share with you today is I've learned with Kay Pranis and I've learned with Terry O'Connell, my two big masters within restorative justice field. So you probably will recognize some of that stuff from Kay Pranis, from Terry O'Connell, from Ted Wachtel, and so on. So in that matter, we consider the most important thing the relationships. As in this morning, the keynote speaker were talking about that, how much the relationship is important for the restorative justice. So thinking about that, I'll show some theories, some issues that are really important for me, but I don't really talk a lot about that, just for you to understand where my thinking is coming from. So Sylvan Tompkins, psychologist who created this psychology of effects, it's a very big thing for me, especially the question about shame and how we deal with shame. Probably you had the chance to really learn more about that. It's not my main thing today. I talk about the effects of Tompkins psychology or the importance of shame. But the shame is a big thing for me when I'm talking with people who've been victimized or the offenders too. They have a very hard time dealing with shame in their lives, being victims, being offenders. Especially, for example, when you talk about gender violence, it's a thing that I work with, and the subject of shame is very important to work with those people. So shame and humiliation is a very important thing. Donald Nathanson has created this compass of shame. You probably, I guess you already know that. So as I said, it's not my main intention today to talk about those things, just to share with you these ideas. So the compass of shame, the ways that people deal with their shame is always a big problem. As I learned from Terry O'Connell, I usually have these folders with me. I work with them one-on-one in the preparatory meetings. I always use that folder, the folders about the social discipline window and so on. Is some kind of visual help for these people to really understand what is happening. And of course, the restorative questions of Terry O'Connell and so on. But well, so the matter of shame is very important. And I used to think about shame and try to work. I try to work with those people to create a better understanding of themselves, their vulnerability, their shame process, and try to create something that I call transformative shame or anti-fragile shame, taking the idea of Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the anti-fragile. So what it means to me to develop some transformative shame is when you use your feelings or emotions about shame to learn, to grow, to enhance yourself, to develop and to resignify yourself. So you can use this matter of shame, even it's a very difficult thing to do, to improve yourself. So that's the main thing that I try to do when I have these one-on-one conversations in the preparatory meetings for a circle. We've learned within the psychology of affects of Sylvan Tompkins, that we are programmed to increase our positive affects. So enjoyment, joy, interest, excitement. We need to increase those affects, those emotions in our life, and we need to decrease the perception of the negative affects. So shame, humiliation, distress, anguish, fear, terror, etc., rage, disgust, dismay. We need to decrease those emotions. And we do it better in the process of dialogue process. When you have the chance to have a good dialogue process, you can manage those emotions and try to feel better when you can really express those emotions. Donald Nathanson, which created the Compass of Shame, teach us how to build community using those ideas. Donald Nathanson says to us that relationships are better built when we share and reduce our negative emotions, and we share and increase our positive emotions. So that's another main thing for me in the transformative dialogues and transformative circles, to help people to really express themselves, to really share their emotions, good ones, bad ones, negative, positive ones. And so we can create better relationships. As you create better relationships, you can really talk about the difficult things that are coming ahead. Of course, we use this other thing, the social discipline window. Everyone, I believe, that knows that work of Ted Washington and Paul McCall. So it's very important for us to help with people, because we believe that everyone is the main expert in their own lives. So it's our job to help them to find the answers, not to provide them the answers. And another thing that is always important for me is the work of John Paul Lederach with conflict transformation. And once again, the relationship is in the middle of everything. We have to work the content, the context, the structure of these relationships. Those relationships are the best thing to help us to create some safe space for these difficult dialogues. Another thing that is important for me is the idea of ecosophy of Félix Guattari, the three ecologies: the ecology of subjectivity, the society, and the environment. So in which work that I do, in which every circle that I run, it's always important to listen to everyone in their subjectivity, their fears, their desires, their emotions, their ideas of how create some safe space and solve the problems and so on. And we always use these conversations too to create this better relationships, safer and healthier relationships. So as you listen to everyone, their subjectivity, you will start to create some space, some collective space, which allow us to work on the very difficult subjects. And of course, we have to work with the environment. And when I say environment, of course, I'm talking about nature, of course, but also the places where we live together. So our workplaces, our homes, and so on. So we have to work in all the three degrees in everyone's life. So that's another very important idea for me. When you create better relationships, you can help people to change their behaviors, including their inappropriate behaviors, of course. So instead of believing that fear and punishment will help to create better and healthier relationships and create a most secure society, we will create some better relationships. We help them to create connection and good relationships. When you really are connected with the people around you, when you have yourself in good and healthy relationships, you can dissuade the people to create or doing inappropriate behavior. So you don't work directly in the behavior, but with the relationship, and that creates some better, less inappropriate behaviors. So that's the other idea that I usually have in my way of thinking when I'm working with people in serious crimes and so on. I use those ideas of United Nations. Of course, the most important thing to do is creating some possible conflict prevention, working on prevention, but we can use this peacemaking processes, peace enforcement. We can help the judicial system, for example, to use their enforcement in a better way. And of course, peacekeeping and peace building. You can use those transformative circles in every step of in all the 5 steps: conflict prevention, peacemaking, peace enforcement, peace building, peacekeeping. You can use it for all those things. I believe that our main job is to work on social transformation. And for me, the way you can do that is to try to develop empathy, otherness, and respect in relationships since the early school years and small children's, and throughout all the time that their children, adolescents will stay in schools, and of course, young people in universities. So you doing that using the circles and whatever the practice that you use to help them to think about themselves, to better understand themselves, to better understand the others, create the idea of empathy, otherness, and so on. You really will prevent the most of the problems and conflicts that can happen in their lives. So just a small observation, the main things for me when I try to work with people was dealing with difficulties from conflicts or crimes in their lives. So how you do that? You need a system, a process, a method, you can name it, that really helps you to help those people to have a better conversation. And once they have a better dialogue, they can really understand themselves. They have the chance to know much more about themselves and the others, the reasons why the things happen, and how to prevent that in the future. So this idea that I have here is from the Gestalt psychology. So what is figure? What is ground for me in here? Is figure is the conflict itself, how it presents to you. A lot of people use the idea of iceberg, the image of iceberg to show that the tip of the iceberg is the way the conflict shows itself to you, and ground is everything that's above that, the emotions, the feelings, the motives, and so on. So you must have a process who really can make these things move. The figure, the ground, the conflict itself, the people, their relationships, their emotions. When you have a process who really can do that, you really start to helping those peoples. Well, that's the main thing that I want to talk about. So I'll use a little more time in here. So what is transformative circles? Transformative circles is a method that I've been developing for the 10 years now. You have some ideas from the peacemaking circles, some ideas from the conferencing model of Terry O'Connell from Wagga Wagga, some ideas from psychology and psychologists. So I've been mixing those things and trying in the last years to create something that really help people to be in the safe space. So what is transformative circles for me? Is one way of presenting it, that this idea should be that structured dialogue process, focusing on emotions and relationships, which creates a safe space capable of sustaining difficult dialogues about complex and or conflicting situations in search of a consensual and prospective definition of the problematic situation. So you can use it everywhere. You can use it in schools, in workplaces, in jails. You can use it in the judicial processes, you name it. I've been using that from maybe 5 or 6 years now with this format. Before that, I was using the peacemaking circles, and I'm using. I had the chance to use that in gender violence and homicides and children and adolescents in foster care, in government shelters, in the schools, in prisons, and everywhere. So it's very safe method for you to use, and we'll talk a little bit about that. How we can do that? Well, the complete procedure, the flow of this procedure, of course, preparatory meetings, the circle itself, and the monitoring meetings. There's no big surprise here. Every one of us really use those ideas. So what is for me the preparatory meetings? Well, usually people who come to the trainings ask me these 5 questions. In which order you talk to the victim and offender? First the victim or first the offender? It doesn't really matter to me, but if I had the chance to choose, I'll start with the offender. Because if the offender doesn't want this conversation, you will not re-victimize the victim, saying that something could happen and then it won't. So if I had a chance, I start with the offender, but I had started with the victim in very number of occasions with no problem. The format, I usually do it one-on-one conversations. It's the best way to do it, but sometimes you cannot do that for some reason. Maybe because the people lives in another city, they only could came to talk to you at once, and so you can use this idea of run a circle to really help them to prepare themselves to encounter the other part. The number of preparatory meetings, it's always you have to talk with everyone. Maybe you have to come back and talk to another one again. So sometimes I'm talk 4 or 5 times with the same person before I can run a circle, especially when the more complex cases or serious harms have been committed. So you have to really have the create a safe space. For that, you have to collect some information, to provide some information, to really understand why their people are wanting, are willing to encounter the other part, and so on. So sometimes you have to run a large number of in preparatory meetings before you think you really can go to the circle itself. The duration of a preparatory meeting, it varies a lot, but most of them 45 minutes to an hour, not more than that. It's a time when you can really explain to them what is going to happen and to answer those questions and etc. And what is the content of this preparatory meeting? The main thing here for me is to create a bond between you and this person. Okay, so you have to create a rapport between the two of you, create a bond of trust. These people need to trust you. They will not trust the process itself. They don't know the process. They don't have to know the process. They don't need to know what is a transformative circle, a conferencing, a peacemaking circle, and so on. They don't need to know that, but they need to know you. You need to know them. So you need to create this close relationship of trust between you and each one of these participants. So that's the main thing in a preparatory meeting. And of course, there are a number of things that are important to achieve that. For example, I always inform them about the differences between a traditional process, a judicial process, for example, and a restorative process. What are the difference? What they can expect to happen in this encounter? I can inform them, I need to inform them of its possible results. What can happen? The other part could make an agreement or not, or don't. This agreement could be fulfilled or don't, and so on. So you need to explain then what are the possible results. You need to explain how this thing is going to work. They don't know. They never been before in a circle, so they need to be informed of how it goes, how the things happen, how their participation will occur, and so on. You use a talking piece, how it works, and so on. So they need to be informed of the process itself. So you need to explain to them how they will participate in the circle, what you expect them to do, what it's not acceptable to do in a circle, and so on. So you prepare that people, every one of them, to be together in the circle to have some serious and important conversation. You have to explain about the confidentiality, the exceptions of the confidentiality. You have to be sure about that and reassure to them that the conversation will be confidential, but if something happens that gives some trouble to anyone, could represent some danger to anyone, that will be not confidential. So they have to really be aware of that. You have, of course, to listen to their stories, to listen their motives, their beliefs, their desires, their ideas, fears, and so on. So once you talk with every one of them, you create this mental map of the conflict. You know what is going on with every one of them. So you don't have some surprise, a bad surprise in a circle. I never had a problem in a circle with people being aggressive or violent or so on, because that's not a magic thing. It's just you have to be you have to be careful with that one. So when in a preparatory meeting, I'm not sure that this person will be at his best in a circle, I don't run a circle. I don't call a circle otherwise every one of them shows me they are really committed to be in their better self inside a circle. So I never had a problem in a circle, because if there's a problem, I don't run a circle. It's as a matter of fact, it's very simple. One thing that I always analyze is there's some kind of problem of a lack of horizontality. Some people have much more power than that. If there's some power issue, I need to work that in the preparatory meetings. Otherwise, people could be in danger if something goes out of control in the circle or after the circle. Maybe it doesn't go inside the circle, but after the circle. So we have to be very careful with that. So you always analyzing, is a secure process for every one of them? I'm really going to help those people with I'm doing or don't. So we can identify the other participants, the possible dates and times for the circle, and so on. So another thing that I do in the preparatory meetings, it's to explain, and create an agreement on the guidelines on the circle. So the guidelines are agreed on the preparatory meetings. So if anyone, for example, if I'm going to use a talking piece for that one, if anyone doesn't agree of the using of talking piece, doesn't agree of talking only when they have the talking piece, I don't run a circle. If anyone doesn't agree on the confidentiality and their exceptions, or the question of voluntarity, etc. So I don't run a circle. So when I go to the circle, all those guidelines are already agreed between me and any one of them. In the circle, I just remind them of this that agreement. Well, let's check my time. Okay, I have some minutes. That's okay. How these transformative circles happen? The internal flow of the transformative circle has 5 stages. It's, as a matter of fact, it's a very simple thing to do, but you really need to be aware of what needs to happen in each one of these phases. These 5 stages: early stage, the interconnection phase, the reflection and brainstorming phase, the consensus search phase, and the final phase. So that's not there. There is no big time here in new things and etc. Any one of these methods works that way. You start a conversation, you create some better relationships, better space to talk, to a dialogue, and so on. So there's no big new things in here. What happens in the early stage? Of course, you welcome people, you create some rapport. You need to contextualize what is going to happen. So you talk to the people. We are gathered here today to talk about this and that and so on, the things that happen. So you create a contextualization of this meeting. You create something to integrate those people. It could be some kind of dynamics or sharing food and so on. The main thing that I like to do is just invite them to breathe calmly, profoundly, and it creates a better place for us. So it's very simple for me. I don't really use a lot of things here. I just invite them to that space. Remember then what we're going to do in the circle. Invite them to really take a deep breath and try to get the focus on these precise moments and to relax a little bit. I remember then about the meetings rules, the guidelines that we've agreed with one-on-one conversations. So that's the collective agreement of these rules. It's important. Then we move to what I call the interconnection phase. In this moment, it's very important for us to really work in the relationships, the idea of a community working together. So I propose what I call empathic questions. Questions who allows us to share some parts of our lives. Storytelling. There again, it's nothing new, but it's very powerful. There's the storytelling. Those empathic questions doesn't work the motives, the conflict itself. It talks a little bit about us as human beings. The transition questions is a very important question. It's an empathic question, but it gives the chance to them to start talking about the conflict. So I call it transition because it's a transition between the time when you're talking about us, our relationships, and the time we start talking about what happened, what and went wrong in their lives. So, for example, if I had a problem, a conflict in the workplace, for example, I can post a question, an empathic question. Tell us a happy story of your childhood, for example. When you're a child, there's nothing it's not doesn't have nothing to do with the conflict itself. The transition question should be tell us how do you felt when you start working within this organization. So it's a storytelling question. They will talk a little bit about their story on that organization, but what happens here is very interesting. At some point that people says, oh, it's very good, I always want to work here in that organization, so on, etc. But someday, suddenly, after that something happened, so the people itself starts to talking about the conflict. It is not I, as a facilitator, who start talking about a conflict, because when you start talking about the conflict from the facilitator, it creates something very, very strange for them. Oh, but as if they say to you, things are going so well, we're talking about us, telling stories and so on, but now we have this problem to face. So when you really open the possibility for them to start talking about the conflict, the things go smoother. It's much more tranquil to pass to that stage to the other stage. The other stage is which I call the reflection phase and brainstorming phase. Why I call it that? Because in that stage we really invite them to talk about what happened, what they thought, what they felt, and what is going on in their lives today from what happened in the past. So I use those questions which I call clarifying questions. It's very simple here. Again, you question then about the time of the events, what happens in the past, and things went wrong. You ask them about its effects on their lives today, what's going on in their lives because of that conflict or that crime that happened. And of course, you need to ask them about the future, about to create some plans to the future. In here, sometimes, not always, but sometimes I use the restorative questions of Terry O'Connell. The Terry O'Connell's restorative questions, I guess everyone in the world knows it. Of course, everyone in the world of restorative just fueled. So those questions: what happened? What were you thinking at the time? What you have thought about since? Who has been affected by what you have done in what way? And what do you think you need to make to do things right again? And so on. So sometimes if I if I need it, I use those questions. I prefer to ask questions more tailored for that people, for those people, for that conflict specifically. But sometimes you don't have all the information, so those restorative questions they are very important for me because they work all the time. They are very easy to use, so it's a very good thing to use too. And of course, the restorative questions. There are others. What do you think when you realize what's happened? The questions that you pose to a victim, what impact this incident had on you and others, and so on. So those Terry O'Connell's restorative questions is a very big idea for you to use. As I said, and don't always use that, but when I use it, it always works. So you can go to the next phase of the circle. The next step is to really work in the consensus. So this consensus is to be real, to be truth, to tell the truth, is not a phase itself, but it happens at the moments that you ask them those questions, those clarifying questions. When we talk about what happens, what is going on in their lives, you're talking about their needs, their values, the harms that they've been suffering, and so on. So having that said, you can create some plans to the future. So using those answers that they will provide you, you can start creating the consensus between those people. You need to verify those agreements, if they're okay for everyone, if they respect the law. For example, if you're working in a lawsuit, and you build an action plan, you put it on paper, everyone signs that, and so on. So then you can really go to the closure of this meeting. Final contributions, what needs to change, if they want to talk a little bit about their relationships, creating some opportunities to be together, to have, for example, a family meal, if a family conflict, and so on. You ask them to evaluate the meeting, how it was for everyone, and you can closure. Normally, I only thank them for being there, and that's it. There's no big deal for me for the closure. I usually thank them to be here with me, and that's okay. The monitoring meetings is the circles or other type of meetings that you use to create a space for monitoring the agreements. If you need to reconstruct some part of the plan, if you need to pack some new actions, new agreements, create some new consensus about something, you can do that. It's always important to celebrate the progress of the relationships, the progress of the actions that they are committed to do, and they really did, and so on. So the monitoring meetings, it's a very simple thing to do. It's not very difficult to do. I want to share to you in a simple way too, example how we can do that. For example, in the gender violence, you can use the circles to stop the violence. You can use the circles to create some safe space for the victims where they can get protection, repair, empowerment, to the offenders to create some accountability, reframing themselves between himself and the others, create some community space to work with when they can get more participation, protection, they can learn from this case, create some space for culture change, and of course to build action plans. How we can do that? Yeah, I have 5 more minutes I use on that one. So when you work with transformative circles to help people who are suffering from gender violence, involved in gender violence, you can do some things. You can help the victim, you can help the aggressor, you can help the community to make some change. So what you can do? You can run circles with victims, only victims, not a big group, a small group, 5, 7, at tops 10 people, to talk about what is like to be a victim of gender violence, of domestic violence, how they felt, what happened in their lives, what they did to solve that problem in their lives, how can really feel much better after, for example, leaving the coexistence with the aggressor and so on. So we can help those victims to talk to each other, so they can empower themselves in those meetings. You can do the same thing with the aggressors, a circle with 5, 10 aggressors, a space where they can talk a little bit about what it means to be a man, what needs to change in the way of being a man, in the way of being in relationships, and so on, so they can really improve themselves and make some important changes in their way of view themselves and the world, their behaviors, and so on. So it's a very good thing to do too. In Brazil, we did that a lot. We have that in our law to protect women or domestic violence. The man has to participate in encounters like that. Community, you can create some spaces for the community to talk about gender violence. For example, what we're trying to do here is to create some transformation of these ideas in the community. You are trying to create spaces to prevent other violences like that. So if you notice in these circles, the community learning circles, for example, the circles with victims and the circles with aggressors, there's no victim-aggressor encounter. They are not together in the circle. So you don't have the problem, the risk of the re-victimization. For example, if you can put together the victim and the aggressor, and they can start living together again, and you could happen another aggression. So you don't have that risk here. You can do some little thing, some other things too. Just a minute. You can run some family community circles for the victim and the victim community. So it's very important for them to create some space to reintegration of this victim to their community, to her community, and etc. The same thing you can do to the aggressor and in his family and community. As you can see, this community here could be the same for the victim, or the same for the aggressor, or a little bit different. But in the community circle, family circle for the victim, the aggressor will not participate. In the family community circle for the aggressor, the victim will not participate. So it's a safe space. Again, it's a safe space. You can run some surrogate circles, of course, between victims and aggressors. It's a very good thing to do. And when things really shows you that the best thing to do is put all those people together, including the victim in the aggressor themselves, you can run some transformative circle with everyone involved. So that's only here that you put the victim and the aggressor in the same space to have a conversation. Only in these cases that it is really safe to do. The circles in yellow are partially transformative, are mostly pedagogical, therapeutic to those people. The circles, the green in green, are majoritarily transformative. It creates some space for reintegration, plans, restoration, and empowerment, and so on. And when you had the chance to put everyone together, yes, then it's fully transformative. I use the word transformative, and I don't use the word restorative here, because in my experience, there's very little to restore in these kind of cases, in these kinds of violence. You really need to help those people to transform themselves, to resignify themselves. So I prefer to use the word transformative, because my experience is mostly with those cases when there's almost nothing to really restore, but you need to transform these people, the way they see the world, and so on. I believe my time is up. Here is my my social media, the way that you can contact me. Don't worry about that. We can go to question and answers. I'll take out my PowerPoint presentation. So thank you, and I'm available to you for question and answers if I have something. Oh, sorry, read. I only read that the chat now. I supposed to remind people to submit those questions in the question and answer too, but you have the time now for if you have some question. I had one here. Do you want, Denise? I get back to you. Yeah, you post me the questions just in the chat, or you talk to do? Okay, so I'll go from the chat. Question one. What makes it preferable that you ask all the questions in the process, rather than turning it over to the participants to ask the questions that matter to them? Okay, Denise, what happened is the questions, as I told you that I not always use the restorative questions of Terry O'Connell. Why? Because when I run these preparatory meetings, I can really understand what is happening in those people's lives. And in those preparatory meetings, the questions will happen. They will show me which questions I have to ask. So I bring them to me to this meeting. So when I have the transformative circle itself, I had those questions already. So there's no need for me to, for example, inside the circle, ask them what kind of questions they want to ask to themselves. I did that in the preparatory meetings. Okay. You can read a question. Okay. Okay. I have some. I believe I don't have another question. That's it. How do participants get referred to your organization? Do you do some self-referral? Do you have participants? Okay. Okay. You can find me on the social media, LinkedIn, and so on. Just look at my name, Paulo Moratelli, and you can find it here. Find it there. You can talk to me about with using WhatsApp, and I'm very easy to reach. I don't. Let me put back again this presentation, and here you can just for a few moments. So and here you have my contacts. So you have my email in here. You have my email, my WhatsApp, or LinkedIn, and etc. So you can find me there anytime, anywhere. So I believe that's pretty much what I want to share with you. Let me see if I had something. We have another question. During COVID, are you doing your preparation meeting in person still or virtually? If virtually, are you still able to develop rapport and trust to the same extent? Thank you for this question. Since the beginning of this year, we're running everything online. Okay, you're using Zoom to do that. It's been amazing. With me and my colleagues are running a big number of transformative online dialogues. We use that to help people who are suffering from the social distancing, people who are living alone in those days, and so on. We did another one with people who lives with children with some special needs. It was very important thing to do too. At this point, we're running some transformative online dialogues for people who are struggling with their online classes, people from schools, teachers, students, and so on, their families. They're trying to rearrange the school itself. So we did a lot of that. We did some circles, not just one presential circle, one with a boy with thinking about suicide, and it was very important thing to do too. So we're doing that, everything of that online. And yes, of course, you can manage to create some bonds, to create some rapport using Zoom. If you ask me that question in 2019, I would say to you it's not possible. But now I can assure you it's very, very possible. It's a very good thing to do. So we're doing a lot of that. Okay, you can get a copy of our presentation. This presentation, you can ask me with my using my contacts, my email, or you can ask for the organization of this event too. That's it. Okay, and the recordings will be posted for 7 days. Thank you guys. Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Denise. Thank for everyone in the RGI for the invitation. I hope that was a good thing for you to listen to me, and I'm available anywhere you want. Just reach out and talk to me, and I'll be available. Thank you again.